What happens when royalty meets Hollywood, and the world watches as one side silently says, "You don't belong here"? Imagine flashing lights, the glittering chaos of a red carpet, and a moment frozen in time that would ignite headlines, social media storms, and endless speculation. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. That moment happened at the 2025 Gotham Film Awards, and it all started when Meghan Markle, former Duchess of Sussex, tried to get a simple photo, just a fleeting snapshot with two of the biggest names in entertainment, Rihanna and A$AP Rocky. What followed would shock not only the attending celebrities but millions watching online, sparking debates about status, respect, and power in a world where image is everything. From the very first second, the energy in the Gotham Hall was electric. The room buzzed with attention only a red carpet can hold, a strange mix of glamour, expectation, and invisible hierarchies. Celebrities glided past velvet ropes, their gowns shimmering under relentless camera flashes. The air smelled faintly of perfume, champagne, and ambition. Every step was calculated, every glance scrutinized. This was not just an award ceremony. It was a battlefield of perception, and Meghan Markle, despite her fame, was stepping onto territory where even the smallest misstep could ripple into a viral spectacle. As Meghan entered, the cameras swarmed. She smiled, perfectly poised, her iconic fashion sense drawing attention. Yet behind that composed exterior was a storm of anticipation. She had spotted Rihanna and A$AP Rocky moments earlier, seated casually at a corner table, chatting quietly, seemingly unbothered by the chaos around them. To any onlooker, it might have seemed like a harmless approach, just a photograph with two global superstars. But in the world of celebrity politics, nothing is ever simple. Every movement, every glance carries weight. The first signs of tension were subtle. Rihanna, ever the queen of confidence, barely looked up. A$AP Rocky's smile didn't reach his eyes. Bodyguards shifted positions. A hush seemed to descend around the trio, almost imperceptible, but enough that anyone paying attention could feel it. Meghan, undeterred, stepped closer, offering a radiant smile and extending her hand. She wanted a connection, a moment that could be shared on social media, a simple proof of camaraderie, or so it seemed. But power dynamics in Hollywood are as complex as they are invisible. You might wonder, why would Rihanna and A$AP Rocky refuse a photo? They are entertainers, public figures, constantly in the public eye, accustomed to cameras and requests. Yet, there's an unspoken code in these circles, a line between casual interaction and acknowledgement of hierarchy. Meghan, despite her celebrity, is also royalty adjacent, a fact that both elevates and isolates her. This incident, seemingly minor, became a flashpoint highlighting that status, influence, and reputation are currencies more potent than any red carpet gown or viral post. The moment Meghan reached for the photo, Rihanna and A$AP Rocky subtly recoiled, stepping back. A micro-expression, a glance, a slight shake of the head, was captured by dozens of cameras. If you watch closely, you can see it. Their distance was a silent statement. Boundaries, authority, unspoken judgment. And the public noticed. Within minutes, images of Meghan leaning forward with a hopeful smile, juxtaposed with Rihanna and A$AP Rocky's polite but firm retreat, flooded social media. Every nuance of body language became a headline, every expression a debate. Was it disrespect, caution, or simply the complex dance of celebrity politics? Let's pause and consider the stakes here. Meghan Markle is no stranger to scrutiny. Every public appearance since stepping back from royal duties has been examined, critiqued, and dissected. But the Gotham Film Awards incident was different. This wasn't about royal protocol or media commentary. It was about the intersection of two worlds, royalty and modern celebrity, clashing in real time. The visual narrative was undeniable. Meghan reaching, Rihanna and A$AP Rocky stepping away. The cameras never blinked. The world watched. And the reactions were instantaneous. Fans erupted online. Some defended Meghan, arguing that the snub was uncalled for, that she deserved acknowledgement for her status and presence. Others applauded Rihanna and A$AP Rocky, framing their reaction as a lesson in humility or a statement about celebrity hierarchy. Memes were born within minutes, hashtags trended, and debates raged on platforms from Twitter to Instagram to TikTok. But the story didn't stop at the public reaction. Behind the scenes, staffers, security personnel, and insiders had their own accounts that painted an even more dramatic picture. And this is where the real tension lies, because the cameras, as omnipresent as they are, capture only the surface. Meghan's approach wasn't just about a photo. It was about validation, visibility, and the symbolic bridging of two worlds she has navigated with varying degrees of acceptance. For Rihanna and A$AP Rocky, their reaction was also a message. A calculated, perhaps subconscious statement about autonomy, control, and the boundaries of public engagement. In Hollywood, every gesture, no matter how small, carries meaning. A smile can signify respect, a step back can signify rejection, and both are amplified exponentially under the gaze of millions. And yet, despite the subtle rejection, Meghan pressed forward. She leaned slightly, her smile unwavering, eyes flicking from Rihanna to A$AP Rocky, as if trying to communicate a silent understanding. I'm here. I'm present. I belong. But the reaction she received was clear. The distance remained, a wall invisible yet palpable. The room's energy shifted. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Journalists took note, their pens ready, their cameras poised. Something unprecedented was unfolding. Now, imagine the emotional weight of that moment. For anyone else, a polite refusal might have been enough to discourage further approach. For Meghan, however, this was an opportunity, an attempt to assert relevance, to bridge a gap, to create a moment that could not be ignored. And it wasn't just about the photograph. It was about perception, narrative, and public image. Every move she made would be analyzed, debated, and remembered. And within that charged atmosphere, a storm was quietly brewing. One that would explode across social media, in gossip columns, and in entertainment news cycles worldwide. But here's the twist. What really happened at that table goes beyond a simple snub. Behind the polite avoidance, there were layers of backstage tension, unspoken rivalries, and conflicting agendas. Staffers whispering warnings. Security calculating the perfect distance. Observers speculating on private comments exchanged in hushed tones. And yes, somewhere in the midst of it all, a moment so subtle that only the cameras caught it. A glance, a gesture, a reaction that would later ignite heated discussions. What was said, what was implied, and what was seen by millions would change the narrative entirely. So why does this story matter? Because it captures something larger than just a photo op gone wrong. It's a lens on power, influence, and social dynamics in the modern age. It's about how public figures navigate boundaries, how perception shapes reality, and how one small moment can spiral into a global conversation. It's also a story about ambition, resilience, and the human desire to be seen, acknowledged, and validated, even when the world seems intent on denying it. And here's the cliffhanger that sets the tone for what's next. Meghan's approach did not end with polite refusal. There was a reaction, unexpected and dramatic, that no one in the room, and certainly no one watching online, anticipated. It was a subtle, almost imperceptible move, but one that would be captured, analyzed, and dissected endlessly. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. The red carpet was only the beginning. What started as a simple request for a photo would evolve into a saga of public perception, media frenzy, and emotional intensity, unfolding in ways that no one could have predicted. And as we move forward, you'll see the layers of tension, drama, and complexity that made this incident not just a moment in time, but a defining story of celebrity, status, and human ambition. What would you do if you stepped onto the red carpet, cameras flashing from every angle, only to realize that the world's most famous stars were deliberately ignoring you? That's exactly the tension that gripped Meghan Markle the moment she arrived at the 2025 Gotham Film Awards. The hall was a kaleidoscope of sequins, tuxedos, and paparazzi lenses, each flash capturing a moment meant to immortalize glamour. But tonight, it would capture something far more intense, a subtle war of recognition, respect, and power. As Meghan stepped from her chauffeured vehicle, the crowd erupted in a mix of cheers, camera clicks, and murmurs. She was dressed impeccably, a silver gown hugging her figure in a way that spoke of elegance and calculated poise. But beneath the composed exterior, anticipation buzzed. She had heard the whispers, seen the lineup, and she knew who was in the room. Rihanna and A$AP Rocky, seated together at a corner table, were among the most influential figures on the red carpet. Their presence was magnetic, their reactions unpredictable. From the very first step, Meghan was under scrutiny. Reporters called her name. Flashbulbs popped. Fans craned their necks for a glimpse of the Duchess-turned-Hollywood icon. Every smile was measured, every wave rehearsed. Yet, there was a different kind of tension in the air tonight. A subtle undercurrent that no publicist or stylist could prepare her for. This wasn't just about fashion or fame. It was about positioning. Who gets acknowledged? Who gets ignored? Who sets the tone for the room? As Meghan moved forward, the angle of the cameras captured something extraordinary. Rihanna, radiant in a bold, asymmetrical black gown, exuded effortless cool. Her posture was relaxed but commanding. A$AP Rocky, in a tailored suit, mirrored the same aura of unflappable confidence. Together, they formed a barrier, subtle but unmistakable. Observers might have missed it if they weren't paying attention, but body language experts would later describe it as a textbook example of disengagement. Crossed arms, angled shoulders, eyes avoiding contact. Meghan approached with a practiced smile. She extended her hand, offering a fleeting chance for connection. This was her moment, a single image that could dominate Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and every outlet in between. But the response she received was nothing like she expected. Rihanna leaned slightly back, A$AP Rocky shifted subtly to the side, and their smiles remained polite but distant. Not cold, but intentionally neutral, a careful boundary drawn in plain sight. Imagine the emotional weight of that moment. To the outside world, it might seem like a minor snub, nothing more than a fleeting glance or polite avoidance. But for Meghan, this was amplified 1,000 times by cameras, fans, and public expectation. Every movement was magnified. Every hesitation would be dissected, every glance interpreted. The red carpet was a stage, but tonight, the performance was unscripted, raw, and tense. The crowd around them started to notice. Whispered comments, subtle gasps, and the quiet hum of speculation filled the space. Photographers angled their lenses, capturing the micro-expressions that would later define the story. One moment, Meghan's eyes sparkled with hope. The next, a fleeting uncertainty crept across her face. She was caught between desire and reality, ambition and rejection. Security personnel observed from the periphery, alert but unobtrusive. They knew the optics mattered as much as safety. Any sudden movement, any sign of discomfort could spiral into a viral incident. Staffers whispered instructions under their breath, positioning themselves to guide Meghan while ensuring the interaction remained controlled. The tension was palpable, a silent battle of wills playing out in slow motion. As Meghan leaned slightly forward, trying to close the physical and metaphorical gap, Rihanna's subtle step back widened it again. It was a dance of distance, a conversation without words. Body language experts later analyzed the footage frame by frame, shoulder angles, eye contact, hand positioning, micro-expressions. Every tiny gesture communicated volumes. And the cameras didn't blink. They caught everything, preserving the moment for millions around the world to scrutinize. At this point, Meghan was fully aware of the stakes. This wasn't just a red carpet appearance. It was a public test of acceptance. Could she bridge the gap between royalty and Hollywood? Could she assert relevance without overstepping invisible boundaries? The answer, at least in that moment, seemed unclear. She maintained composure, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of tension. Every flashbulb became a reminder of scrutiny. Every whisper around her amplified the silent message. Recognition must be earned, even for someone who once held the world's attention as a duchess. Audience engagement is key here. Pause and imagine being in her shoes. You've walked the world's most glamorous red carpets, met countless celebrities, and yet, in this singular moment, you're confronted with a subtle, almost imperceptible boundary. How would you react? Push forward? Retreat? Or freeze in place, aware that every choice is public spectacle? Then came the first wave of whispers from the press line. Is she going to get the photo? Did Rihanna just step back? Look at ASAP Rocky's face. What does that mean? Within seconds, the moment was no longer just between three people. It was a public performance, analyzed and interpreted by hundreds of observers and millions online. But Meghan's reaction was telling. She didn't withdraw immediately. She adjusted slightly, repositioned, and maintained a warm smile. It was a careful balance, assert presence without creating conflict. Yet, the response remained unchanged. Rihanna and ASAP Rocky maintained their distance, their body language signaling a controlled, deliberate disengagement. And in that controlled disengagement, a story began to form. A story that the media would later spin in countless directions, some sympathetic, some critical, and others sensational beyond imagination. The red carpet continued to move around them, but the tension remained frozen in that corner. Every celebrity passing by felt it. Some glanced, some whispered, some snapped photos, sensing the drama unfolding. Security remained vigilant but passive, allowing the optics to play out without interference. Staffers whispered suggestions, but Meghan held her ground, aware that any visible frustration could be magnified across social media within minutes. And here's where it gets even more intriguing. A small, almost unnoticed gesture occurred. Rihanna subtly shifted her gaze toward ASAP Rocky, a micro-expression that spoke volumes to those trained to see it. Was it a silent exchange of approval for disengagement, or a private acknowledgement of Meghan's presence without public validation? The cameras caught it. The audience online would eventually dissect it, but in the room, only a few noticed. Yet this tiny moment would later become a point of speculation, the spark for thousands of opinions and interpretations. Meanwhile, Meghan's team whispered guidance from the sidelines, offering subtle cues on posture, expression, and proximity. But she barely needed them. Her experience in public appearances, combined with her royal composure, allowed her to maintain an elegant front. Yet, internally, a storm brewed. Every step back from Rihanna and ASAP Rocky amplified the stakes, each micro-expression a subtle challenge to her presence. The flashbulbs continued, relentless and unforgiving. Paparazzi angles captured her hand extended midair, poised for connection that would never be realized. The juxtaposition of hope and polite avoidance was stark, a silent narrative written in gestures, distance, and glances. And the world outside the hall was already reacting, millions refreshing feeds to see the first images, the first headlines, the first social media commentary. At that precise moment, a thought must have crossed Meghan's mind. This was more than a photo. This was a statement, an unspoken negotiation of respect, status, and boundaries. She was negotiating recognition without words, competing for validation in a room where fame is currency and social capital can be measured in inches of space on the red carpet. But the climax of this tension, the moment that would define the rest of the evening, was yet to come. Meghan, poised and radiant, extended herself once more toward Rihanna and ASAP Rocky, a final attempt to bridge the gap. The response, subtle yet unmistakable, would be captured by dozens of cameras, discussed in headlines, and analyzed frame by frame for weeks to come. A single step back, a slight head tilt, a faint smile, seemingly minor gestures that carried monumental weight. And at that instant, the world was watching. But what came next would escalate the situation far beyond a simple red carpet snub. What happened after that subtle retreat would ignite social media storms, spark heated debates, and leave the attending celebrities, and Meghan herself, on edge in ways that no one anticipated. The red carpet was just the beginning, a prelude to a story of ambition, rejection, and public perception that would unfold in dramatic, unpredictable ways. Have you ever tried to reach out to someone, only to feel that invisible wall rise between you? That's exactly what Meghan Markle experienced moments after her first cautious approach to Rihanna and ASAP Rocky at the 2025 Gotham Film Awards. The red carpet, which had already felt like a battlefield of glances and subtle signals, now became a stage for a more intimate drama, one that no one inside the hall could fully anticipate, yet everyone felt the tension of. After her initial approach, Meghan paused briefly, taking in the room around her. The flashbulbs still popped relentlessly, and the air was thick with whispers, speculation, and the faint hum of excitement that accompanies high-profile events. She wasn't alone. Her team flanked her, subtly guiding posture, offering gentle cues, but the moment was hers. She adjusted her shoulders, straightened her spine, and smiled warmly, attempting to bridge the space between herself and two of the world's most influential celebrities. Rihanna and A$AP Rocky remained seated, or rather, they maintained a posture that signaled controlled disengagement. Rihanna's gaze shifted slightly, her attention momentarily drawn to A$AP Rocky, as if to communicate something private. A$AP Rocky mirrored the same tension in his body, a subtle, deliberate distancing. Their collective energy formed a quiet but unmissable barrier. Meghan, recognizing the challenge, leaned in slightly, her expression a mixture of charm, patience, and hopeful insistence. This was her first real attempt at connection. But here's where it gets complicated. In Hollywood, approaching a superstar isn't just about manners or enthusiasm. It's a performance in itself. Every movement, every smile, every word is scrutinized. And Meghan, despite her celebrity and royal history, was navigating a space governed by unwritten rules she had never fully mastered. The moment Meghan extended her hand for a photograph, the first signs of nonverbal resistance became unmistakable. Rihanna's shoulders shifted back slightly, creating space without moving overtly, a classic maneuver used to signal polite disengagement. A$AP Rocky mirrored the adjustment with a subtle lean to the side, angling his body away from Meghan while keeping a neutral facial expression. To anyone unfamiliar with the nuance, it may have seemed like casual posture. But for those trained to read body language, it was a clear message. Boundaries have been set. Meghan, for her part, maintained an elegant composure. Her smile remained fixed, her posture upright, and her eyes bright. Yet micro-tells betrayed her inner state. The slightest tightening of her jaw, a faint furrow of the brow, a brief hesitation before speaking. These small details, though fleeting, were magnified by the relentless flashbulbs and the cameras capturing every frame. To the audience, these subtle shifts told a story of hope, effort, and the beginnings of frustration, all occurring in silence. Let's break down the dynamics here. Rihanna, a master of public poise, was signaling control without aggression. Her subtle step back, the angle of her shoulders, the direction of her gaze, all were calibrated to maintain authority while avoiding confrontation. A$AP Rocky's movements complemented this perfectly. His tilt away, his neutral expression, his controlled breathing, all contributing to a carefully choreographed display of disengagement. Together, their nonverbal cues created a wall, quiet, polite, and undeniable. And Meghan? She was attempting to breach that wall, not with force, but with charm and persistence. She leaned slightly forward, adjusted her head angle, and allowed her eyes to convey warmth and approachability. Her gestures were measured, her tone light, and her movements calculated to suggest friendliness rather than dominance. Yet, the barrier remained firm. Every inch she gained was countered with subtle resistance. The interplay of push and retreat was invisible to most, but the cameras captured it perfectly. Here's a question for the audience. Have you ever tried to get someone's attention in a crowded room, only to realize they're deliberately avoiding it? That feeling, magnified by flashing cameras, public scrutiny, and social expectation, is what Meghan experienced. Every micro-movement was amplified, every slight hesitation became a potential headline, every glance a subject of public debate. The stakes were no longer personal, they were global. Observers in the room started noticing the tension. Staffers whispered quietly, journalists adjusted lenses, and fellow celebrities cast discreet glances toward the trio. Some viewers recognized the drama unfolding, while others were oblivious, caught up in their own red carpet moments. But the moment had a magnetic pull, drawing attention because it combined something universal, human interaction, with the spectacle of fame and status. Meghan's micro-expressions were particularly telling. The tightening of her lips suggested restraint. The slight tilt of her head indicated attentiveness. The subtle lift of her eyebrows conveyed inquiry, almost as if she were silently asking, "Are you with me? Can we connect?" Meanwhile, Rihanna and A$AP Rocky's controlled expressions provided no answers. They maintained polite neutrality, their distance a silent assertion of hierarchy and autonomy. The visual contrast between Meghan's openness and their guarded composure was striking, and the cameras didn't miss a second. The audience watching online immediately latched onto these signals. Social media erupted with frame-by-frame breakdowns, body language analyses, and heated debates. Some viewers sympathized with Meghan, interpreting her gestures as graceful persistence in the face of subtle rejection. Others praised Rihanna and A$AP Rocky for maintaining professional boundaries, framing their nonverbal communication as a lesson in controlled poise. The split in public opinion highlighted just how much power is held in unspoken signals. Security personnel, aware of the potential for misinterpretation, monitored the scene closely. Their role wasn't just protection, it was optics management. They ensured Meghan could engage safely without escalating the tension or causing a visible conflict. Staffers on the sidelines whispered instructions, but Meghan relied largely on instinct, balancing approachability with respect for the subtle boundary being communicated. Every small decision, how far to lean, whether to step forward, how to angle her smile, was calculated under extreme scrutiny. Now, consider the psychology of this moment. Humans are wired to respond to nonverbal cues almost subconsciously. A step back, a slight turn of the head, a flicker of the eyes, all trigger cognitive and emotional responses. Meghan's repeated attempts to connect were met with subtle but consistent resistance, creating a cognitive dissonance. The desire for engagement versus the visual signals of disengagement. It's a tension that viewers around the world immediately felt, even without understanding the full context. The drama escalated further when Meghan tried to add verbal warmth to her gestures. She offered light, polite greetings, attempted jokes, and complimented the pair on recent achievements. Each attempt was met with neutral acknowledgement. The subtle shakes of the head, the measured eye contact, the polite but controlled posture, all combined to reinforce the boundary. Meghan's persistence, however, made the dynamic even more compelling. It was a visual story of effort versus restraint, desire versus denial, and the silent negotiation of power. Even minor details were loaded with significance. The direction of Meghan's gaze, the positioning of her hands, the angle of her torso. Each element was a signal, consciously or unconsciously crafted. In contrast, Rihanna's and A$AP Rocky's gestures were equally deliberate, designed to maintain authority while minimizing disruption. The juxtaposition of these two approaches created an invisible tension field, one that the cameras immortalized and the world dissected. And then, the smallest gesture made the biggest impact. Rihanna, for just a fraction of a second, allowed her eyes to meet Meghan's fully. A subtle acknowledgement, almost imperceptible. It lasted less than a heartbeat, but it was enough to signal that Meghan had been seen, if not welcomed. Before any further connection could be made, A$AP Rocky shifted, reclaiming the buffer zone, and the moment evaporated. The dance of approach and retreat, visibility and resistance, continued to hold everyone's attention, both in the hall and across the globe. By now, social media was alive with speculation. Commentators dissected micro-expressions, theorized about unspoken conflicts, and debated whether this was a snub, a subtle lesson, or simply celebrity etiquette. Memes began to circulate, highlighting the contrast between Meghan's eagerness and Rihanna and A$AP Rocky's deliberate composure. Public curiosity was at its peak. Everyone wanted to know, what would happen next? Would Meghan succeed in bridging the invisible wall? Or would she retreat, her presence quietly rebuffed in front of the world? But here's the cliffhanger that would carry the tension forward. Meghan, sensing both acknowledgement and subtle resistance, prepared to make a decisive move. One that would risk visible rejection, but could also turn the tables entirely. The next few moments would define the trajectory of the evening, influence social media narratives, and create a story that no one in the room, or watching online, would soon forget. Have you ever wondered what happens behind the cameras when the world is watching a high-profile event? Not the flashbulbs, not the red carpet smiles, but the whispers, the side-eye glances, the hushed opinions exchanged between celebrities in private. At the 2025 Gotham Film Awards, while the public saw Meghan Markle reaching for a photo with Rihanna and A$AP Rocky, the room itself was alive with speculation, quiet judgments, and insider chatter that would never appear in the headlines. Or so it seemed. As Meghan paused, gathering herself for another attempt at connection. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Nearby, other A-list celebrities leaned subtly toward each other, exchanging looks that conveyed both intrigue and amusement. "Did you see that?" one whispered, nodding toward Meghan's poised stance and the subtle retreat of Rihanna and A$AP Rocky. "She's really trying." Another countered, "But they're not even acknowledging her properly. That's a bold move." These small exchanges, seemingly insignificant, carried weight in a room where reputation and perception are everything. Some celebrities watched with sympathy. They recognized the human need to be seen, to connect, to assert one's presence, even when subtle power dynamics seemed to push back. They understood what Meghan was attempting, a delicate negotiation of visibility, charm, and persistence. And yet, others viewed it through a more cynical lens. "This is theater," one insider whispered. "It's calculated, and she knows exactly what she's doing." The tension between empathy and skepticism in the room mirrored the public debate happening online in real time. Security and assistants, trained to blend into the background, were silently observing too. Every reaction, every whisper, every glance was a data point. They noted which celebrities were noticing the exchange, which were making mental judgments, and which were simply curious. To them, this was more than a minor social moment. It was a high-stakes study in human behavior under the glare of fame. Meanwhile, Meghan, ever conscious of her surroundings, adjusted subtly. Her posture remained open, her smile calculated to convey warmth, but her eyes scanned the room. The energy around her was palpable. A slight nod here, a subtle shift of weight there, each movement registered by those attuned to celebrity dynamics. Everyone in the hall, even those pretending to be absorbed in conversations or checking their phones, felt the tension. It was magnetic, drawing attention without any need for words. Some whispers focused specifically on the microdynamics between Meghan, Rihanna, and A$AP Rocky. "Look at the way she's leaning in," one insider said. "And he's just maintaining that angle. They're setting boundaries without saying anything." Another added, "It's fascinating. She's trying, and they're giving her just enough acknowledgement to keep the tension alive." These conversations highlighted a crucial point. In celebrity culture, gestures, postures, and fleeting glances often speak louder than words. At the same time, speculation about intention began to emerge. "Do you think she really thought they'd say yes to the photo?" someone whispered. "Or is this a move to get noticed, to make headlines?" The question itself underscored a recurring theme of the evening. Perception is reality. In a room filled with fame, power, and carefully managed images, even the smallest interaction could be amplified, interpreted, and misrepresented. Not all observations were friendly. Some celebrities, viewing the exchange from a distance, judged Meghan harshly. "She's overstepping," one murmured under her breath. "There's a difference between persistence and entitlement." Another nodded in agreement, adding, "Even with her background, she can't just demand recognition. Boundaries exist for a reason." These private opinions, unspoken yet palpable, reflected the broader tension between respect, fame, and hierarchy that was playing out in real time. Yet, a few allies quietly rooted for her. They admired the attempt to bridge worlds, royalty and Hollywood, old prestige and modern celebrity. "It's brave," whispered one veteran actress. "She's showing persistence, and that's not easy when everyone else is so carefully maintaining distance." These divided opinions, empathy and criticism, admiration and judgment, mirrored the public's divided reaction online, demonstrating how quickly a single moment could polarize perceptions. Meghan's awareness of the gossip around her added another layer to the tension. She had learned over years in public life that perception is everything. A glance, a word, or a gesture can redefine reputations in seconds. She maintained composure, subtly scanning the room while preparing her next approach. Every step forward was calculated, balancing assertiveness with diplomacy, visibility with subtlety. Her body language, already analyzed by millions online, was now being scrutinized in person by peers who knew the stakes intimately. And the whispers didn't stop at Meghan alone. Rumors about Rihanna and A$AP Rocky's reasoning circulated. "They're just maintaining their space," one insider claimed. "They don't want a forced photo, but they aren't being rude either." Another countered, "It's more than that. There's a message here, a hierarchy being asserted subtly. Look at the way he positions himself before she even gets close. These observations highlighted an essential truth. Even the slightest social maneuver in celebrity circles carries significance, and the meaning often extends far beyond what casual viewers perceive. Suddenly, a subtle development caught everyone's attention. Rihanna adjusted slightly, her gaze flicking toward Meghan for just a second longer than before. It was almost imperceptible, a silent acknowledgement that was easily missed if one weren't paying attention. Yet the insiders noticed. "Did you see that?" One whispered, leaning closer to a colleague. "She just let her in a little, but he's still holding the boundary." The nuance of that moment, invisible to many in the crowd, would later become central to debates across media platforms. The tension reached another layer when a few celebrities, attempting to break the ice, approached the trio casually, offering compliments or comments. Meghan responded graciously, her energy poised and polite, while Rihanna and A$AP Rocky navigated the interruptions without breaking their composure. Their ability to remain calm, collected, and subtly distant under multiple pressures underscored the mastery of public behavior expected at events of this scale. The whispers turned into soft speculation. Was this about more than just a photo? Was this an unspoken clash of worlds, a confrontation between perceived hierarchy and persistent effort? Even the most casual observers could sense it, the tension, the careful maneuvering, the subtle pushes and pulls. The red carpet, meant to showcase glamour, had become a theater of social dynamics and silent negotiation. And then came the cliffhanger moment. Meghan, sensing the slightest opening, the brief flicker of acknowledgement from Rihanna, prepared to act decisively. Would she seize the moment, risking visible rejection, or would she retreat gracefully, letting the subtle acknowledgement fade? The room, buzzing with speculation, seemed to pause collectively, holding its breath for the next move. And in that pause, the stage was set for an escalation that no one in the hall, or watching from afar, would forget. What happens when polite resistance meets persistent pursuit? That's exactly the scenario that unfolded at the 2025 Gotham Film Awards, and the energy in the room was electric. After Meghan Markle's initial attempts at engagement with Rihanna and A$AP Rocky, the tension hadn't dissipated, it had intensified. The micro-expressions, subtle shifts in posture, and the silent signals of acknowledgement and resistance were about to escalate into something far more pronounced. Meghan's approach remained strategic. Every movement she made was deliberate. A slight step forward, a gentle tilt of the head, eyes locked briefly on Rihanna's, and then a quick scan to include A$AP Rocky. She maintained her signature composure, a practiced elegance that masked the internal calculation running through her mind. This wasn't just about a photograph anymore. It was about presence, influence, and being recognized in a room where hierarchy is silently but fiercely enforced. Rihanna, however, had subtly intensified her boundary. Not aggressively, not dramatically, but with nuanced adjustments, shoulders slightly back, hands folded in a way that communicated inaccessibility, and a barely perceptible shift of her torso away from Meghan. A$AP Rocky mirrored this change, leaning subtly to one side, his gaze diverting just enough to maintain control over the interaction. It was as though they were conducting a symphony of disengagement, and every movement was a note in a silent, precise composition. The crowd around them, while focused on the glitz and glamour of the awards, began to notice the interaction. Journalists and photographers angled their cameras, capturing every fleeting moment. Observers couldn't ignore the tension. The juxtaposition of Meghan's poised persistence against the pair's carefully maintained detachment created a visual story that begged for analysis. Social media, already primed with attention, exploded in real time as snippets and images circulated within minutes. This subtle escalation, however, wasn't just about physical distance. The energy in the room thickened. Conversations nearby slowed, whispers became more pronounced, and even those not directly observing the trio sensed something unusual. Celebrities adjusted their positions, some leaning in to catch every detail, others whispering quietly to colleagues. "Do you see what's happening?" It's like a chess match without words. Every observer recognized the stakes, even if the motivations remained opaque. Meghan, aware of the scrutiny, doubled down on her efforts, but with a refined approach. Instead of pushing for direct acknowledgement, she began to employ micro-gestures to bridge the divide: a slight smile, a subtle nod, hands gracefully positioned to indicate openness without intrusion. Her energy was controlled yet persuasive, a dance between visibility and respect for the unspoken boundary. She was threading a needle in real time, aware that any misstep could be magnified, misinterpreted, or weaponized in the court of public opinion. Rihanna and A$AP Rocky's reactions remained measured. To the untrained eye, it could appear indifferent, but their body language was meticulously calibrated. Every blink, every flicker of the eyes, every shift of weight was deliberate. They were sending a message without a single word: engagement is possible, but only on our terms. This delicate negotiation of control and acknowledgement was invisible to most in the room, yet it resonated with anyone familiar with celebrity dynamics or power signaling. The subtle escalation became more pronounced when Meghan attempted light conversation. She offered compliments, referenced mutual acquaintances, and injected gentle humor into the air. Yet, for every word she spoke, Rihanna and A$AP Rocky maintained a polite but controlled neutrality. Micro-expressions betrayed no outright rejection, but neither did they signal encouragement. The push-and-pull dynamic intensified: Meghan's charm versus their composure, persistence versus boundary, visibility versus resistance. Nearby celebrities whispered, observing the unfolding drama. Some admired Meghan's audacity and persistence. Others criticized what they perceived as overreaching. "She's playing a dangerous game," one insider murmured. "They could shut this down publicly at any moment." Another countered, "No, it's fascinating. She's walking a tightrope, and that's exactly why people are glued to every second." This blend of admiration and skepticism reflected the broader public debate online and in media commentary. Imagine standing in front of two of the world's most influential celebrities, poised for a photograph, only to realize that your presence is being negotiated in real time, not with words, but with subtle gestures, careful angles, and unspoken boundaries. That was Meghan Markle's reality at the 2025 Gotham Film Awards, and what followed would escalate from a private moment of tension into a full-blown public spectacle. After the subtle escalation of gestures and micro-expressions, Meghan sensed a rare opening. Rihanna's eyes had briefly met hers with a flicker of acknowledgement, and A$AP Rocky's posture, while controlled, allowed a sliver of access. Meghan's team encouraged her to act, offering discreet cues and soft whispers, but she relied largely on instinct. This was her moment, calculated but bold. She extended her hand fully, adjusted her stance to convey warmth and approachability, and positioned herself for a photograph. The room's attention, whether consciously or unconsciously, turned toward the unfolding interaction. The cameras clicked relentlessly, capturing every angle. Flash after flash documented Meghan's poised persistence, Rihanna's measured acknowledgement, and A$AP Rocky's subtle balancing act between distance and recognition. Even the audience that appeared distracted by the glamour could feel the tension radiating from the trio. It was almost magnetic, a silent drama made visible through body language, posture, and fleeting eye contact. But then came the subtle rejection. Rihanna's smile remained polite but non-committal, and A$AP Rocky shifted ever so slightly, creating a physical buffer that prevented full engagement. The photograph, so close to being captured, was never realized. Meghan's hand, poised elegantly, hovered for just a second too long before she retracted, a graceful acknowledgement of the boundary reinforced by the pair. The room absorbed the moment differently. Some noticed the microdrama, others only the glamour, but no one could ignore the tension entirely. The immediate public reaction was instantaneous. Social media platforms lit up within minutes, fueled by the first photographs of Meghan's attempted approach and Rihanna's subtly neutral posture. Hashtags began trending, with millions debating the significance. Was it a snub, a power play, or simply etiquette and personal space? Fans dissected every frame: the angle of Meghan's shoulders, the tilt of Rihanna's head, A$AP Rocky's controlled lean. Even small details, like Meghan's slight smile or her hand gestures, were magnified, scrutinized, and theorized about endlessly. News outlets wasted no time. Online articles and headlines framed the moment as a story of tension, subtle rejection, and celebrity hierarchy. Rihanna and ASAP Rocky maintained distance from Meghan Markle at Gotham Awards, read one headline. Another claimed, micro-gestures speak louder than words. Meghan Markle attempts photo amid subtle snub. The media amplified what had already been a quietly tense interaction, turning a micro-moment into a global spectacle. Inside the room, whispers continued to spread. Celebrities discussed the attempt with hushed tones, some sympathetic to Meghan's persistence, others praising Rihanna and ASAP Rocky's subtle command of the situation. "It's fascinating to watch," one insider murmured. "She's navigating it gracefully, but they're keeping the upper hand." Another countered, "I admire her poise. Most people would freeze or retreat. But yes, the boundary is unmistakable." These murmurs reflected the duality of public and private perception. Admiration and judgment, intrigue and subtle critique. Meghan's persistence had now transitioned from body language to a moment with social stakes. Every flashbulb, every camera lens, every whispering insider became part of the story. She maintained her composure, but the emotional intensity of the moment was palpable. A brief tightening of her jaw suggested restraint. A subtle lift of her eyebrows conveyed inquiry. A slight tilt of her head implied openness and approachability. The contrast with Rihanna and ASAP Rocky's measured neutrality created a narrative ripe for speculation. Online, the reaction became even more polarized. Fans split into two primary camps, those defending Meghan, highlighting her persistence and grace in the face of subtle dismissal, and those supporting Rihanna and ASAP Rocky, praising their control, composure, and subtle assertion of boundaries. The discussion extended beyond celebrity culture into debates about respect, social dynamics, and public perception. Memes and GIFs circulated rapidly, capturing moments from the attempted interaction and emphasizing the drama in visual shorthand. Meanwhile, the room itself continued its quiet observation. Other celebrities and attendees, though not directly involved, could feel the tension. Conversations slowed, whispers grew more deliberate, and attention shifted to the trio. Every movement became charged with significance. Meghan's poised attempt, Rihanna's restrained acknowledgement, ASAP Rocky's careful balance. The atmosphere was thick with social awareness, a mixture of curiosity, empathy, and judgment. Security and assistance remained vigilant, ensuring that the subtle escalation didn't devolve into a confrontation or a disruptive scene. Their presence was nearly invisible, but critical. They maintained spatial awareness, monitored crowd flow, and allowed the interaction to unfold naturally while protecting everyone involved. Even the subtlest mishap, an unintended step or a misaligned gesture, could have generated a headline far more sensational than the existing tension already created. The moment reached its climax in one final, fleeting attempt. Meghan positioned herself slightly closer, her hand extended for the photograph, her expression a combination of charm, determination, and grace. Rihanna's eyes flicked toward her again, offering a glimmer of acknowledgement. But before a photo could be taken, ASAP Rocky adjusted his posture subtly, maintaining the boundary. The moment dissolved into polite neutrality. Meghan retracted her hand gracefully, her composure intact, but the attempted connection had failed. And yet, the fallout was immediate. Cameras had documented every nuance, social media had exploded with analysis, and gossip in the room continued to circulate. Headlines framed it as a subtle snub, a public test of influence, or an illustration of celebrity hierarchy. Fans debated endlessly, dissecting micro-expressions, analyzing body language, and questioning motivations. Every gesture became a story, and the story was just beginning. The cliffhanger. Meghan, despite the failed photo, had not yet retreated fully. Sensing that the pair's acknowledgement, however small, could be leveraged, she prepared for a next move, one that could either turn the tide or solidify the boundary permanently. The tension in the room, both physical and social, was about to escalate again, and what came next would determine how the rest of the evening unfolded, on the red carpet and across the globe. Have you ever noticed how the quietest moments can carry the heaviest weight? At the 2025 Gotham Film Awards, Meghan Markle's persistence with Rihanna and ASAP Rocky had already created a spectacle of micro-expressions and subtle gestures. But now, the dynamics were shifting. What had started as a polite attempt for a photograph was evolving into a silent power play, a careful negotiation of influence and presence, played out under thousands of watchful eyes. Meghan's next move was deliberate. She repositioned herself slightly, angling her body to signal openness while respecting the physical space around the pair. Her eyes softened, and a warm, controlled smile accompanied a small nod, a gesture that invited acknowledgement without demanding it. Every micromovement was calculated, a blend of diplomacy and assertiveness honed through years of public life. The red carpet, already charged with tension, seemed to pause, the room collectively attuned to the unfolding silent drama. Rihanna and ASAP Rocky, experts in public poise and media navigation, were fully aware of the stakes. Their subtle reactions, the tilt of a head, the adjustment of shoulders, the precise placement of hands, served as silent signals of control. They were not simply resisting Meghan's approach. They were asserting authority through nonverbal cues, crafting a narrative without uttering a word. This was the art of influence in its quietest, most visible form. Observers in the room, from fellow celebrities to assistants and media personnel, began to notice the intensifying energy. "It's like a chess match," whispered one insider, eyes fixed on the trio. "Every move is deliberate. Every reaction tells a story." Another added, "They're controlling the narrative without saying a single word." It's fascinating. These whispered commentaries underscored a crucial point. In Hollywood and high society, power is often exercised through subtlety, and mastery of body language can dominate the room without a single headline being written. The tension extended beyond the immediate participants. Social media exploded with speculation, fans dissecting every detail of posture, gaze, and gesture. "Did you see the way she leaned forward?" One comment read. "They're keeping her at arm's length, but that acknowledgement, it's a crack in the wall." Another said, "Rihanna and ASAP Rocky are masters at subtle control. Every micro-movement is deliberate. She's navigating a minefield." The world outside the hall was now as invested in the drama as those inside, a global audience witnessing a private negotiation unfold publicly. Inside the room, Meghan attempted another layer of engagement. This time, she introduced a verbal cue, a light compliment acknowledging Rihanna's recent project. The words were carefully chosen, polite but engaging, meant to create connection without pressure. Her tone was friendly, confident, and approachable. Yet, the response was measured. Rihanna's smile remained polite but reserved, while ASAP Rocky maintained a neutral expression, his posture angled to control proximity. The interaction was a dance of subtle influence, each participant maneuvering carefully within the invisible boundaries of social power. The psychological dynamics at play were fascinating. Meghan's gestures communicated openness and charm, while Rihanna and ASAP Rocky's measured neutrality communicated control and authority. The room, fully aware of the nuances, was witnessing a masterclass in unspoken negotiation. Every tiny shift, every blink, every hand placement was interpreted as a statement of influence, status, or intent. The interplay of approach and resistance, acknowledgement and boundary, created a tension that was both invisible and utterly compelling. Whispers continued among other celebrities and attendees. Some expressed admiration for Meghan's persistence, noting her composure under scrutiny. "She's navigating a minefield," one remarked. "Most people would falter, but she's keeping her poise." Others praised Rihanna and ASAP Rocky's control, highlighting the power of nonverbal communication. "Look at how effortlessly they maintain authority," another whispered. "It's subtle, but it's dominating the space." These reactions illustrated the duality of perception in high-profile settings. Persistence can inspire admiration, yet control commands respect. The subtle escalation was punctuated by a single, almost imperceptible gesture. Rihanna shifted slightly, allowing a fraction of Meghan's presence to enter her peripheral space. It was not a full acknowledgement, but it was enough to signal that Meghan had not been entirely excluded. ASAP Rocky mirrored this adjustment with a precise angle shift, maintaining control while permitting minimal proximity. The room absorbed the moment, the tension thickening as all observers sensed that something was about to happen. Meghan, recognizing the fleeting opening, prepared for a decisive move. Her eyes softened, her posture opened further, and her hand extended once more, not for a photograph this time, but for a subtle gesture of connection, a nod, a tilt, a graceful reach that signaled acknowledgement and engagement simultaneously. Every movement was deliberate, balancing approach with respect for the unspoken boundary. The energy in the room intensified, a mixture of anticipation, curiosity, and silent judgment. And then came the cliffhanger moment. The subtle power play, already invisible to casual observers but crystal clear to those attuned, was about to escalate further. Meghan's next action could either breach the delicate barrier entirely, earning acknowledgement and perhaps a photograph, or solidify the boundary permanently, making this encounter a defining moment of restraint and authority. The tension in the room, and across the globe through social media, had reached a critical point. What happened next would determine the evening's narrative, and it would shock many who thought they understood celebrity dynamics. Have you ever witnessed a moment so subtle it almost slips past you, yet so charged that it changes the entire dynamic of a room? That was the moment at the 2025 Gotham Film Awards when everything shifted between Meghan Markle, Rihanna, and A$AP Rocky. What had been a tense negotiation of presence, body language, and silent boundaries suddenly pivoted, leaving everyone, celebrities, staff, and millions of viewers online, holding their collective breath. The tension had reached its peak. Meghan, poised and graceful, had extended every effort to engage with Rihanna and A$AP Rocky. She had leaned forward, softened her expression, extended her hand, and subtly attempted conversation. Each move was met with polite neutrality, carefully maintained distance, and controlled acknowledgement. The dance of approach and resistance had been unrelenting, but then, something unexpected happened. Rihanna, in a fleeting, almost imperceptible gesture, made the first move. She tilted her head ever so slightly, a micro-expression of recognition, almost imperceptible to casual observers, but immediately noticed by Meghan. In that moment, it was as if a door, previously closed, had opened just a fraction. Meghan's eyes flickered, catching the acknowledgement, and for a split second, the world seemed to pause. The room, already tense with anticipation, seemed to hold its collective breath. A$AP Rocky mirrored the subtle adjustment with a minimal shift of his body, signaling that while the boundary was maintained, a sliver of engagement was possible. The microdance between them intensified, a silent conversation conveyed through tilt, glance, and posture. For anyone paying attention, it was a masterclass in social signaling. The power of restraint, the subtlety of acknowledgement, and the immense weight carried by tiny gestures. The unexpected gesture caused an immediate ripple effect. Nearby celebrities, previously whispering among themselves, froze their casual conversations to watch. Assistants and security personnel paused in their duties, sensing the escalation of tension. Photographers, already capturing every moment, leaned in for closer shots, knowing that something unprecedented was happening in real time. The red carpet, usually a backdrop for glamour and smiles, had transformed into a stage of silent negotiation and psychological drama. Meghan, sensing the rare opening, acted with precision. She extended a graceful hand, not aggressively, not with entitlement, but with polished elegance, paired with a warm smile and steady gaze. Her body language radiated openness, confidence, and approachability, designed to maximize the potential of Rihanna's subtle acknowledgement. Every movement was intentional, a delicate balance of charm, diplomacy, and assertiveness honed from years of public scrutiny. The audience watching online erupted in real time. Clips of the moment spread across social media platforms, each frame analyzed and dissected. Fans debated, was this the breakthrough moment? A rare acknowledgement from one of the world's most influential celebrities? Or just a polite, passing gesture, amplified out of proportion by context and public fascination? Analysts and gossip commentators flooded the scene, dissecting the micro-expressions frame by frame, weighing the significance of every tilt, glance, and shift. Inside the room, whispers escalated. "Did you see that?" One insider breathed, eyes fixed on the trio. She just got a response, but it's subtle. It's tiny, but it's something. Another nodded, adding, "This is like watching a high-stakes game of chess without pieces. Every micro-movement is a move. Every glance is a strategy." Even seasoned celebrities were captivated by the moment, acknowledging its intensity and significance. The unexpected gesture carried profound implications. It was not a full acknowledgement, not an invitation for a photograph, but it represented a shift. A recognition that Meghan's presence, her persistence, and her charm could not be entirely dismissed. The power dynamics were momentarily rebalanced, a sliver of engagement emerging from a space previously dominated by controlled neutrality. It was a testament to the impact of patience, timing, and subtlety in high-profile social interactions. Meghan's next move became critical. With the micro-gesture from Rihanna as her opening, she had the choice to advance further or hold her position. A misstep could render the acknowledgement meaningless. A careful, graceful action could solidify it into a meaningful interaction. The stakes extended beyond a single photograph. It was a moment that could define public perception, media narratives, and social media discourse for days. The room, attuned to the nuance of the interaction, seemed to lean forward collectively. Photographers adjusted angles, assistants held their positions silently, and fellow celebrities exchanged barely audible comments. The tension was electric, the stakes higher than anyone could articulate. Every microsecond of body language carried narrative weight, every flicker of recognition or movement a potential turning point. And then, in the most unexpected twist of the evening, A$AP Rocky added a subtle reinforcement to Rihanna's micro-gesture. His slight nod and careful tilt of the body created the smallest of openings for Meghan. It was not a full engagement, but it was a signal that the pair were willing to allow a carefully measured connection. The room noticed. Cameras zoomed. Social media exploded. Every observer understood that this was a rare crack in the wall, and the tension of anticipation skyrocketed. The cliffhanger. Meghan, seeing this fleeting but significant opportunity, prepared to act decisively. The next few moments would determine whether she could turn subtle acknowledgement into a visible, meaningful interaction, or whether the boundary would close again, leaving the encounter as a lesson in controlled celebrity distance. What came next would shock many, redefine the narrative, and leave an indelible mark on the evening's events.